Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you are watching this. Welcome back to another episode, more specifically the 21st episode of the Since I Was Young podcast, all things Heart of Midlothian, news chat and debates. Joining you as always is my good friend Alan and a very sick, ill Ewan. How are you doing, mate? You all good?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, mate. I'm not too bad. It was the elements of Time Castle that have made you unwell, isn't it?
It was the stench from the Roseburn fucking inn, I think, eh? The stench from the fucking filth, I think it was, what it was, mate.
But yeah, no, it's. I don't blame you. To be fair, I don't blame you. It was freezing that day.
It was like I was like like the first game in like sort of the God knows how long, and yet me just thinking, yeah, I'll be a hard wee prick. Have the thinnest jacket on, like I'll have it off, I'll have my top on. And you saw yourself, Alan, five like sort of read the minutes in, I'm just slowly just putting back on my jacket. I was fucking freezing.
You were shivering right enough, mate.
I was like literally, mate, and oh, mate, like it was a nightmare, but it's all good. But as we just mentioned there, that is going to be the main topic for the podcast this evening. The review of the first Edinburgh derby of the season at Tynecastle, which ended in a 0-0 draw. So we'll talk a bit about that in a wee bit. But we have also got a bit of, well, I want to say sort of was it the breaking news, but it's not. It only just sort of came out. Like it only just came out like about half an hour ago. So you could kind of say that. So we have got a wee bit for the news segment. But as always, guys, before we get into that, if you are a fan of the podcast, please think about subscribing and smash that like button. As always, we do really appreciate it. And if you want to get in contact with us as well as always, you can. Our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at SIWY Pod. Also, if you want to get in contact with us through email, you can. It is at since I was young 1874 at gmail.com. And if you want to get in touch with Alan as well and myself as well, you can. Alan's Twitter is in the description, as well as my YouTube channel, What Ewan's Doing. So, Alan, like we just mentioned there, we have some news to share with all. When you sent me it, I'll be honest, I didn't understand what the fuck I was actually going through, but you can shed like a bit more light on that and a bit more detail on that, buddy.
Yes, so in the last, like you say, in the last half an hour or so, the Hearts have put out a statement in agreement with Aberdeen, Dundee United, and Hibs. They've commissioned an independent advisor, which is Deloitte, to basically review the SPFL in terms of ways that revenue can be maximised and basically to benefit the clubs, because it's one of these things that I've said it for a long time, that the product of Scottish football is massively undersold compared to the English game. And obviously the English game has superstars worth hundreds of millions of pounds. We don't have that, but we don't make the most of what we do have, I think. And I think this review, it seems to be sort of geared towards that, and like it's split up into different things. And I had a brief look through it. I haven't had a chance to properly go in depth with it, but it seems as if they're looking at like commercial revenues and like marketability and just all these things that they can basically feel like the SPFL is doing something, but they could be doing more. They could be unlocking different avenues to market the club, maybe, or the game in maybe different countries. And because, yeah, like I've said, the Scottish, I mean, I don't know what you think, but Scottish football for me right now is in a much better state than it has been for a long time in terms of all the clubs. Obviously, Celtic and Rangers are going to be the two that, compete for titles because they've got considerably more money than everybody else. But the teams below them have all, I think, raised the standards a bit. And obviously, season St Johnstone winning the two cups, that shows that there are other teams other than Celtic and Rangers in Scotland. So if it's something that will get any results, I don't know. Deloitte were responsible for the review into the voting fiasco with the league reconstruction.
Oh God, right.
with Dundee in there. Yeah. So obviously the findings
Interesting.
of that were nothing happened. There was nothing wrong. Move on, forget about it. So I don't know. I mean, I'm very much in favour of the fact that ourselves, Hibs, Aberdeen, Dundee, and Dundee United have made this step and said, well, we'll do it. We'll work with Deloitte to do it. But what will come out of it, I'm not sure. I said it. I was kind of briefly scrolling through Twitter when it was breaking news, and they were saying that a lot of the things in the statement were sort of similar to what Neil Doncaster's job seems to be. So it's almost as if we're saying, well, let us just do your job for you. Let us get somebody else to say,
Get it.
okay, you're doing okay, but you could do this, you could do that. But
Yeah.
it depends. It really depends. But it's a positive thing. It is a positive thing to shine a different light on Scottish football in that way.
Yeah, no, man. I mean, just from like sort of what you said there. I mean, because I mean, through argument's sake, like you could probably say that from anybody that's kind of looking into Scottish football, like they would kind of say that both Celtic and the Rangers kind of represent like that like sort of league in that sense, like what I mean, because they're not
Yeah.
going to take more like sort of notice into the like the other teams as well. So would you maybe like say from like a standpoint that the SPFL, because they kind of get a lot of the revenue marketing as well from Celtic and the Rangers for a long time, that they've kind of been happy with that?
Yeah,
Like, you know,
definitely. And I think Scottish football, like there's no question, like one of the main selling points of Scottish football and the Premiership in particular is the Old Firm derbies. Everybody knows that. That's what
yeah.
Sky pay the money for. But you look at it this season, you've got a Dundee derby, you've got the Edinburgh derby, and you've got the Old Firm derby, all in the
Mm.
same league. And I'm not saying that we should be on anywhere near the same levels of financial, levels as English
Oh no,
football, but
no.
in terms of proportions, like what we're getting compared to what they're getting is like peanuts, and
Oh,
it's
ridiculous.
and it's one of those, if it could be marketed in a different way or to a different broadcaster or whatever. I mean, I don't work for Deloitte. I'm not in the review panel, but it's one of those. If they can look at it and say, "Well, look, have you done this? Have you tried that?"
Yeah.
It might open it up a bit more. And it's funny because Ron Gordon, the Hibs chairman,
Mm-hmm.
he's been obviously over from America, and he's had lots of ideas and basically saying, Scottish football could do better for itself, and I think even like talking about like the national team being at the Euros and all that, we should be capitalizing on that and going, well, the national team is making steps forward, so why is the league not?
Yeah.
So it's, as I say, it's an interesting thing, and I think hopefully it breeds some results, but whether it will or whether the SPFL will just take the results and put them in the bin and say thanks very much, but we think we're doing a good job, move along, kind of thing. We'll
Fair enough.
we'll see, but it's good that it's been made public, and the fact that like these clubs are back in it. Obviously, Celtic and Rangers are not involved, which is interesting in itself.
Exactly.
But we'll see what comes out of it.
Absolutely, man. Well, thank you, Dad, much for giving us a wee bit in depth on that note. And obviously, if we do hear anything else on that throughout the next few weeks or months as well, we will keep you guys updated in a future the podcast. So, yeah, I think that kind of brings us on to our main topic of the day, which, as previously mentioned, the Edinburgh Derby, which was held at Tynecastle on Sunday, 12 o'clock kickoff, and we were there in the lowest seats possible. And from a neutral's perspective, you might be a bit like so don't see much and blah blah blah, but you got your dream made come true, mate, with that beautiful, like sort of literally like a few yards away, just being you, and then apparently Haring just looked you dead in the eye, didn't he?
He did. He did. He looked right at me, and I melted into a puddle on the floor. I love that man. Genuinely, I love that man.
Mate. Like I will tell you now, you're saying that. Like as soon as I got a glimpse of Halliday, like mate, there was 1,000 fucking puddles on the floor. I will tell you that for free. But yeah, all in all, it was a fantastic day. Just to be back at Tynecastle. Fell out as well. The atmosphere was absolutely brilliant. Like before the game, like as well, it was absolutely fab. So yeah, we can kind of kick off into the actual game itself. Were you particularly happy with how we set out, mate, or like sort of would there been any sort of wee changes that you might have made?
Yeah, I thought the lineup he went with was pretty much nailed on. We obviously in our last episode when we were joined by the Perth to Paisley boys, we gave our predicted lineups, and I think at least one of us got it pretty spot on,
I
or
think so,
maybe
yeah.
maybe a combination of all of us managed to get it right mostly. Andy Halliday obviously on the bench rather than starting. But yeah, no, I was pleased with the way that he set up, and Woodburn, Gary Mackay-Steven, and Liam Boyce up front were the three that I'd expected to start. So yeah, and obviously Benny and Haring in the middle seem to have cemented their places in there.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so no, I don't think he really made any significant errors in selections. I think the players kind of picked themselves as well, to be honest.
Yeah, no, man, exactly. I was quite like sort of not was happy, but like quite like sort of like was it what's the word like expected like sort of
Yeah.
like that like could be the lineup, and it was nice to see Kingsley back as well, who actually had himself quite like a good game. I think when we was kicked off, I mean, I think we kind of came out of the traps like relatively quickly. I thought we set the pace of the game. I thought probably the majority of the first half, I thought we mainly controlled it. I think we created more chances than Hibs for that like sort of the first half. And yeah, like like I was relatively like pleased like sort of with the first half as such. I think like the words that you used, and I will say it 13 times exactly. The key word for yourself was frustrating. And would you like to put a bit of detail on that, sir?
Yes. I think when you were speaking about the lineups and stuff, obviously I was pleased with the Hearts lineup. Was the Hibs lineup, they were missing some players.
Yeah,
they had a few absences in there. The boy Doyle Hayes didn't play. Obviously, Deutsch is injured, so they had a few changes to make, and Jamie Murphy was out as well. So it wasn't as strong a Hibs team as what they can put out.
No.
But yeah, I mean, I agree. We started the game relatively well. I think one of the main things for me that I actually liked about the game was that, we, again, I'm referencing back to last week's episode that we said, these games are about a fight and about a scrap. There wasn't as much of that.
There wasn't, no.
And obviously, I mean, there was individual battles, and, our players were winning the ball and the Hibs players were winning the ball. And there was some crunching tackles and, some high feet flying in, but it wasn't that kind of derby, which was quite nice to watch. And it was both teams, you could see that both teams believed that they could actually win it. I think that was the kind of impression that I got, which was a refreshing change because, as I say, sometimes, majority of the time, Edinburgh derbies are pretty average in terms of the football that's played.
No, man, exactly.
Yeah, no, it was just nice to see both teams actually believe in, let's actually try and have a go and see if we can win it.
Yeah, man, because I mean, I think this was probably the most entertaining 0-0 that I've probably watched in terms of a derby, I think, yeah?
Yeah, I would go along with that. It helps a lot that, well, I say helps, it hinders us that the fact that Hibs actually have a competent goalkeeper that knows how to use his hands.
I know, that was a mind fuck. That like did you just see like did he actually make that save? Jesus Christ!
I know, but I mean we were used to Gordon making the saves that he made. Let's be honest.
Yeah, no, man. I mean, like we'll talk a bit more like sort of in the second half as well. But I think both was it the Gordon and was it the Messi like as well, they both like deserve like sort of quite a lot of the credit because, like you said, like they like sort of they both made fantastic saves. Like but like I guess it kind of comes down to like that's what they're meant to potentially do. So like but yeah, I mean, one of the main sort of talking points I think I believe it was in the first half was the controversial was it the pull down of the Boyce when he was practically like sort of like was it the facing like the goal. I'm pretty sure it was McGinn. I think it was.
Yeah.
And from what I remember from it, I mean, from what I took from that, like Boyce kind of used his like sort of was it the body to kind of shove him off.
Mhm.
He falls down to ground, and then he takes Boyce down as well. And then,
Yeah.
strangely, Boyce actually ends up was it Gavin like the free kick away, which I
Mhm.
found ridiculous. And like of course as well, we will talk about it like as well. But the referee though, he had a fucking shocker that game. That was probably the worst part of the whole game. Like
Yeah.
some of the decisions were like absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, no, definitely. The foul on Boyce was it was controversial. I've seen a few people online suggesting that it should have been a red card for McGinn because he was the last defender, and
Yeah,
I can see the logic to that. But if you watch it again, McGinn is actually just quite clever with the way that he does it. He sort of gets himself across Boyce, and Boyce kind of turns away from him. So it was good defending, but also Boyce was doing his job, trying to get goal side and trying to keep the ball. McGinn falls, like you say, Boyce falls down, McGinn falls with him and sort of takes him out as he's falling.
yeah.
It's a bit of a strange one. I mean, it's one of those. Maybe a different referee might have seen it differently. But yeah, to echo you, the referee was absolutely horrendous. But he was horrendous for both teams.
Yeah, aye.
There was a blatant Peter Haring handball that he
Oh
controlled it with
mate,
his
we
arm,
literally
and
we
yeah,
saw that like
yeah,
literally right there. It's just like is
yeah.
that
So
not a
the
handball?
yeah, so the referee was embarrassing, and I think the thing. I mean, I'm not going to go on too much about the ref because it doesn't
Aye.
deserve the publicity. But
No.
if you're a referee in a game like that, and I put this on Twitter as well, that the biggest thing for a referee during a derby is remember it's a derby. Remember there's going to be tackles flying in. You
Mm,
have to let the game flow somehow.
absolutely.
You
Yeah.
know, don't just blow your whistle every time somebody touches somebody else and falls over. It ruined the flow of what promised to actually be quite a good game of football. And some of the things that he was blown up for, there was absolutely no reason to, or like just play the advantage and let the game go. If
Yeah.
somebody's made a foul, come back to it later. That's what a competent referee would do. But yeah, he was bang average. But anyway, he was bang average for both sides, so we can't say he favoured one or the other.
Absolutely, man. Well, on that note, like throughout the first half, were there any sort of standout sort of the points for yourself or?
In terms of performances, Ben Woodburn, what a
He
player
actually had
he
a good game, yeah.
yeah, what a player he is to watch, by the way. And I think I've mentioned this before, and Daniel said it on our last episode about
Mm.
the intelligence of players and having players that are more intelligent than the opposition.
Don't bring up that competition again because it hurt me. But please go on.
But it's the intelligence of the players that we have.
Yeah.
And you could see that Ben Woodburn has played at a far higher level
I
than
know.
Scottish Premiership football. Some of the movements he was making, some of the passes he was attempting, and the link-up play with him, Boyce, and Gary Mackay-Steven at parts of the game was actually very promising.
It'd be really good, man.
But yeah, he really impressed me. And it's something I'll speak about later on. But I didn't agree with him getting subbed off. But again, it is what it is. We'll go into that later on.
Of course, man. Of course. And of course as well, there were quite. I mean, like saying that as well. Like, so would you agree with the fact that, like, with the performances that the both teams had throughout the first half, would you agree that Hearts kind of looked favourable to go on and the win, or?
I think it was quite even, to be honest. I
Yeah.
think it was quite even, and I think I mean, I don't know what the stats officially were, but I don't think we had much in the way of shots on target by
No.
halftime. So that's maybe the one thing that I'd count against us. But yeah, it was an even game, and you could see that both teams were trying to play football,
Yeah.
and that made a difference. But yeah, I think a 0-0 at halftime was fair. Both teams had chances. Gordon made some saves, Macy made some saves. We defended well, they defended well. So it was actually pretty decent. And I'll while we're on it, I'll give shouts to Craig Halkett as well. I thought he was absolutely fantastic in what he was asked to do during the
Yeah.
game.
Yeah, no, man,
Which,
because like
yeah,
like, was it saying that, mate? Like, I've never seen that man so angry. Like, I think it was what the first five was at the minutes when it was a goal kick, I think it was, and it got was it Ed that played it to Halkett, and then I don't know if he was trying to get Haring to come forward so he can was it Ed to pass it, but then he got himself into danger. Did like sort of was it handled it well, like to like sort of slide tackle it out, but mate, he was off his trolley at Haring.
yeah, he was, and it's like I say about Haring, about Halkett. I thought he was very good during the derby. He
It
won
was, yeah.
every ball in the air that came at him. He was heading them away. He was defending. He was putting himself, where he needed to be. Passing the ball out is not his game. It's never been his game. But you know, he did a good job, and I'll give him credit for that because he was actually very solid. I think our defense in general was solid.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think that's pretty much all of the first half talking points. I think if you've got anything else to actually add.
No, not really. There was a few Hibs chances. McGuinness hit one, I think, or maybe that was the second half. But it was as I said, it was nice to see both teams trying to play football. But a draw at halftime was fair.
Absolutely. And I think that once it got to halftime, I think you and me were still absolutely creasing ourselves at the fact that when Hibs got their first at the corner and Newell came to take it and it was just pure silence, and it just some beautiful Hearts fan just like out of nowhere, smelly cunt. It just like literally after all the names, it's just going, oh, I wanker, blah blah blah, this that, silence, smelly cunt. It's just fucking. I was like, mate.
Do you know it was absolutely brilliant, and I don't know about you, but like I think I said it to yourself at the game as well. It's when someone just pipes up in the middle of silence and you hear
dude.
one voice, and then everybody in that section sort of laughs about it.
Mate, I was.
That's what it was.
I was
That's
done.
what it was.
Like, I was absolutely done.
Even the girl next to me, she was laughing away about it and all. It was just like smelly cunt.
Smelly
Like,
cunt. That'll do. That'll do.
That was a highlight.
Right, it was, mate. It was. So yeah, we got into the second half. From my personal perspective, I thought throughout the whole game, you're right. I think it was pretty even, but I think Hibs kind of got a bit more of a foothold on the actual was it the game. I think in terms of their counters were a lot more effective as well. Was there anything in particular you took away from the second half, Alan? Or
Well, I mean, they made the substitution at halftime. They brought Gogic on for the boy Scott up front, who I thought was absolutely dire, by the way. But I think bringing Gogic on made sense for them because a lot of our play was kind of like we had Benny and Haring basically strolling around the midfield, dominating it. And then we had Woodburn, Gary Mackay-Steven and Boyce all quite central. There wasn't really a lot of width in the first half. So I think when Gogic came on and sort of sat in the midfield and that crowded that out, Gogic isn't a particularly good football player, but his presence in there just broke it up and it was just an extra body in there that kind of stopped us from doing it.
absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, there were a few chances in the second half. Hibs probably had a few good ones. It was the McGuinness chance in the second half. It was a cutback from Nisbet, and McGuinness hit it, and Gordon made a good save. Nisbet had a volley that went wide, but yeah, they had a few chances, but so did we. We had Gary Mackay-Steven hit a couple,
which I probably thought was the best, in my opinion. That was probably the best chance of the whole game.
Yeah, should have been a goal. Should have been a goal. Where we were sitting, we kind of thought that not made a mess of the shot, but we didn't really think he'd put enough on it.
No.
But when you watch it back from a different angle, and obviously we were side on, so you can't really tell. But you watch it from behind the goal, and he puts enough on that for that to go in, and Macy makes a great save. And then the one after that he sort of dragged along the ground, Macy makes another save. And then there was what was it? Was it Gino, when he came on, he had a header at the back post after Barry Mackay cross. Gino heads it wide, but we created chances, but we just couldn't quite get that killer touch. And I don't know about you, but I was pleased to see Gino come on, but I think he wasn't as effective as I'd hoped he would be.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
I think Hibs had obviously done their homework and knew how to neutralise him, and they did. He very rarely got down the wing running, and the injury to Smith didn't help because obviously Smith's normally the boy that plays behind him. So it was a little bit difficult in that one. But Barry Mackay, when he came on, I thought he looked pretty good. Early signs are promising. But it was just, again, it was more of the same from the first half. Very kind of to and fro, both teams having a go and creating chances for themselves. But I do agree with you that Hibs had a bit more control in the second half.
Yeah, and just while you mentioned him as well, I genuinely think that this new sort of recruitment setup we've got now, there's got to be a thing in there is that the player has got to look beautiful. I genuinely thought that fucking was it at the Barry at the Kai. He's a bit of eye candy, honestly, because when he came to come and take the first was it the corner? I was like, oh son, hello, come kick me all out of the place, honestly.
You had the Sky cameraman right in front of you.
Oh mate, I genuinely thought I was a part of the Sky fucking was it the crew. Like his arse was right in my fucking face every time. Like Hearts got a chance. Say, oh no, I'll just move here, and then oh no, I'll just move there, and then oh no, I'll come back there and come back there. Like get to fucking arsehole, like honestly.
Well, that's like I was saying to you, like it's one of those things when you're sitting in the front row, you kind of have to deal with that. But
no.
It was a bit.
No, when I'm there. No, when I'm there. No. Like you'll stay there. Or they'll go fucking somewhere else. No, when I'm there. No. Absolutely fucking disgrace. Sorry. But yeah, no, like you said, I mean, I didn't think Gino had the impact that he would usually have. But like again, I think it's just down to Hibs and Jack Ross, like sort of taking that into like account. Like, you know, they must know like sort of how we've kind of changed, like sort of was it halfway through a game. Mm-hmm. So they did keep him relatively quiet. And then, like you said as well, when Smith like sort of went off, we brought on Moore. Again, like I don't think he did anything amazing. I mean, I think a lot of players like you would kind of expect to kind of turn it up a wee bit, like, you know, didn't like, you know, get like, you know, as like sort of far as they could do. Like again, like I don't think Gino had a massive impact. Mackay Stevens as well, even though I thought he had a genuinely good game, I don't think again his impact with his feet, I don't think he kind of like, you know, made the greatest impact as he could do. And then again, when it kind of got into the last half an hour as well, like, you know, I think we kind of started to fall back slightly, like as well.
Yeah, I think the both wingers, to be honest, that started. I mean, Woodburn was good. As I say, I didn't agree with him going off, but you know, it is what it is. But Gino was not as effective because he was marshalled out the game.
Yeah,
Gary Mackay-Steven wasn't as good as he can be, but I'll say as well that Michael Smith and Alex Cochrane, who were playing at the wing-back positions, they didn't get forward enough for me to help Mackay-Steven and to help Woodburn, because that's the whole point. Like, without going technical and tactical and all that, because you know I could be here for a week, but both, you know, Gary Mackay-Steven and Ben Woodburn were cutting inside. Like I said earlier, they were cutting into the centre of the park. And that then is meant to leave the space for your wing backs to bob on and help, you know. But Cochrane and Michael Smith just didn't quite do it enough.
Yeah.
They didn't overload in that area, which meant that Hibs kind of had it quite easy to defend against them. But then, as I say, when Gino came on and when Barry Mackay came on, they're different kind of wingers, but Barry Mackay was still cutting inside, and so was Gino, because they weren't being shown down the line. It's a point I was going to make at some stage, and you've kind of led me into it. It's this whole thing about Robbie Nielsen saying that he's going to substitute the wingers after an hour. I'm not sure I agree with it all the time.
Yeah, no.
I think there's a time and place for that, and I think it makes sense. He's right in what he says. Like, if a winger can't play 90 minutes, that's fine. If he thinks a winger can have more of an impact in the last half an hour of a game, that's absolutely fine.
Mm-hmm.
But any manager who does their homework on Hearts now will know, well, if Gino's not starting, chances are he'll come off the bench with half an hour to go.
Exactly.
Or if he's starting, all you have to do is keep him quiet for an hour, and then he'll go off and somebody else will come on. So it's one of those. It's kind of frustrated me because it's made us almost predictable to know what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And the thing is I said it on Twitter after the game that, and I said it to you as well, that Nandule should have came on. Nandule would have changed that game. He would have. He would have been a focal point up front that would have let Boyce drop off, and the wingers could have been more involved, and they would have played off Nandule. And the Michael Smith injury meant that Robbie Nielsen couldn't bring on Nandule. So he'd made all 3 substitutions with 20 minutes still to go. And you're like, well, you've got 20 minutes to play here, and you've got no way of changing the game.
Yeah, like
you've already made all subs.
No, man, exactly. I mean, I do agree that I think bringing him on would have kind of changed the dynamic of the actual game, and it might have gave the Boyce like a chance to actually get onto those those wee sort of the touches from Nan. So, like, he's massive. Like, even in the flesh, he seems fucking a giant. It is ridiculous. So yeah, I think that probably would have changed the actual game from some perspective as well. I mean, that kind of got us to the end of that sort of big game, and again, I think a 0-0 draw was probably the more fairer result, but at the same time, and again, you said it yourself, it was a bit frustrating from that point, because we saw at the end there, as well, Hibs were celebrating as if they just had the one. I mean, because I mean, if we went to Easter Road and we took a point, would you be relatively happy with that, or would you expect us to actually go there and actually the win?
Depending on the context, to be honest. Yeah. I think Hibs celebrated it like it was a win, because for them it felt like a win, because of the players they had out injured, obviously, and the Hibs fans knew that they weren't at their best. Like, I know a few Hibs supporters from work and mutual friends of ours that are Hibs fans, and they said the same. They said, that wasn't our full strength team. That's a good point for Hibs to get. So, in that extent, I can kind of understand why they celebrated it, but it was a bit cringy. Obviously, the Hearts players went down the tunnel, heads down, disappointed that we've not managed to win, which should be the case at Tynecastle. Tynecastle, we should be looking to win, as many games as we can, and in Edinburgh derbies specifically, you need to be trying to win those at home. But yeah, it's a really, and you've said it, and I said it to you about 20 times on the day of the game. It's frustrating. It is frustrating. Everything about it was frustrating. The referee was frustrating. The fact that Hibs actually had a competent goalkeeper was frustrating. So yeah, but it's a point that we've got, and we've still not lost a game yet. Third in the table, you take that. It's not the way I wanted it to go. I wanted us to win comfortably, but it wasn't to be. And I do think, as I said about the substitutions, I think they had a massive impact on the game, because I think our control in the forward areas came when Ben Woodburn was on the park. And as soon as he went off, we didn't have anyone of that technical quality to control the game the way he was doing. When you look at Edinburgh derby at Tynecastle, you think, right, we've got to try and win that. We've got to go for that. And we did, we tried to win it. You could see it. We weren't sitting in defending. We weren't cautious. We weren't worrying. We were going out to try and win. And I
Yeah.
think it was an interesting battle between two managers who are predominantly quite defensive minded. And we know that,
Mm.
Robbie Nielsen is defensive minded, or cautious is maybe the better word. And Jack Ross is the same. They're
Mm.
both school of living managers, aren't they? They both worked
Yeah,
under him. So, well, they both
pretty
worked
much.
under him at Hearts. So,
Yeah.
it's obvious that there's elements of the living try not to lose strategy, but
Mm.
it was a tactical battle that neither team could come out on top of, and a draw, annoyingly and frustratingly, was the fair result.
Absolutely, man. And I guess that kind of brings us to the end of the main topic of the first Edinburgh Derby of the season. Like we said, which ended in a 0-0 draw just on Sunday past there. And now we look forward to next week, where we are away to play Ross County. Alan, I'm not going to try and sort of pretend that I know a lot about was it Ed the County. I don't know shit about them. I really, really don't. The only thing that I know about them for sure is that they've not won this season. Is that right?
Yeah, not yet.
Oh,
No.
we'll change that for sure. We'll change that for sure. No
They've
question asked.
In their opening 5 games, they've got 2 points. They drew on the opening day against St Johnstone at home,
Mm.
and they drew against Aberdeen away. So they're an interesting one. They're a really interesting side, Ross County, because they played Celtic at the weekend at
Mm.
Parkhead and got battered 3-0, but it was 0-0 after an hour.
Fair
So,
enough.
it's I'd love to sit here and say it's going to be a comfortable victory, and I hope that it is. But to know Hearts is to know we don't do comfortable.
Nope.
So, but yeah, look, Malky Mackay is their manager, and I can't stand that man. So I hope that we absolutely pagger them all over the park and come back
Couldn't be
home
more.
happy with 3 points. I can't stand Malky Mackay. I think he's a horrible, horrible man. And
Fair dues, man.
Ross County have absolutely no morals in employing a man who's, well, he got done for racism at Cardiff and all his nonsense
Yeah,
that he was up to there. So
true, man.
yeah, so I'm not a Malky Mackay fan, as you can probably quite easily tell. But
Not at all.
he'll, yeah, they've basically signed a whole new squad of players for this season. They brought 12 new players in the summer, including
Okay.
loans. They've got some loans. They got a boy on loan from Arsenal, a defender, someone on loan from Southampton, I think it's a midfielder. So they've got players in that are not bad players, but it's one of those. They're a scrappy side. I think it might be
Aye.
similar to the St Mirren game that we played earlier
Mm-hmm.
in the season. I think it'll be similar to that.
Nice one, man. Well, on that note, obviously, thus far, the score has still not changed in the since I was young head to head the predictions league. Literally, it has been 3-2 since after the Celtic game, and nothing has changed after about 5 games. So I'm going to actually start to think when I make my score lines. What are you thinking for this one, Alan? For the game against Ross County away, what are you thinking?
I'll go Hearts win 2-0.
Fair enough. And just as an added sort of bit, the bonus, who's your scorers?
Barry Mackay.
Ah, good show.
And I'll go Barry Mackay and Boyce. Why not? Let's go Boyce.
Why
I've
not,
got
mate?
I've got
Why
to throw
not?
him in there.
I know, man. Of course you do.
Go back to play against them as well. Used to play for them, so
he did indeed. Absolutely, man. Like you mentioned, I do agree with the fact that I think it'll be a lot like the St. Was it the Mirren game? It'll be a bit of a scrap as well. So I'm going to actually go for the same score line, and it's going to be a 2-1 win to Hearts, and I reckon Gary Mackay, Stephen, and Gino to get the 2 goals. So I'll go with that. And like me, I don't even care if I don't get it right, and if you do, I just want the score to change. Like it's just been sat there like a lonely arse score, just no changing. You know what I mean?
I know. One of these days we'll get one bang on. Well, I mean, you've already got one bang on. I've not, so I'm still waiting on that. I'm still waiting on that. But hopefully this will be the one.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. But yeah, I think that comes to the end of this the podcast of the main topic of the Edinburgh Derby, and of course as well, once the game was played next week, we will talk about that in depth. Hopefully there will be things to talk about, because at the end of the day it is Ross County. But yes, as always guys, thank you very much for watching Since I Was Young the podcast, all things Heart of Midlothian, news, chats and debates. If you want to get in contact with us, you can. Our Facebook, Instagram and Twitter are all in the description at SIWY Pod. Also, our email is on screen and in the description as well, since I was young 1874 at gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to get in contact with us as well, as always, our links are in the description with Alan's Twitter page and my YouTube channel, What Ewan's Doing. So, as always, Alan, thank you very much for joining me on this beautiful, sick evening.
Not a problem at all, sir. You feel better.
We're going to go and fucking bury my head into a hot water bottle, sir. Oh, it's going to be glorious, mate. It's going to be glorious. But yes, as always, guys, again, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you in the next one. You take care. Bye for now.